November 11, 2012. A quiet expat neighborhood in Belize wakes up to a nightmare. A man is found dead with a bullet in the back of his head. By sunrise, police have a suspect, John McAfee, the millionaire who put antivirus software on a huge chunk of the world's computers. When officers arrive to question him, he's already gone. What happens next feels less like a crime story and more like a one-man escape manual. McAfee slips across borders, fakes medical emergencies, dodges extradition, and turns an international manhunt into a public spectacle, taunting authorities online like it's a game. Warrants multiply. Interpol gets involved. Multiple governments want him in cuffs. And somehow, every time they tighten the net, he disappears again. This isn't just a fugitive story. It's a masterclass in making powerful institutions look slow, clumsy, and unprepared. How does one man stay free for that long? And what happens when the running finally stops? John McAfee's story doesn't start in the jungle. It starts in Silicon Valley. In 1987, he writes a small piece of code, barely more than a handful of lines by modern standards, that detects a new kind of threat spreading through floppy disks like a digital infection. Personal computers are exploding in popularity, and so is fear. McAfee sees the panic before most executives even understand what a computer virus is. He builds a detection tool in his spare time, gives it away to get it adopted, and watches the phone start ringing. Within months, he quits his job, turns his software into a business, and builds McAfee Associates with the kind of scrappy momentum that makes investors salivate. But the real genius isn't just technical, it's psychological. He doesn't sell code. He sells protection. He warns the public that viruses will cripple companies, wipe finances, and bring operations to the brink. He amplifies the fear just enough that IT managers feel like they're irresponsible if they don't buy his product. And it works. By the early 90s, major corporations are paying. Money pours in. John McAfee becomes tech royalty. But he hates being royalty. The boardrooms suffocate him. The meetings feel like cages. Rules irritate him. Authority triggers him. This is not a man built for compliance. His history reads like a warning label. Reckless decisions, volatile behavior, and appetite for chaos. He doesn't just bend social norms, he treats them like enemies. Eventually, he cashes out, walks away from the company carrying his name, and for a moment he seems like a man who finally bought his freedom. He drifts. He chases novelty. He hunts enlightenment through retreats and strange obsessions. But then the 2008 financial crash hits, and a large portion of his wealth evaporates. For most people, that kind of loss forces humility. For McAfee, it fuels something darker, conviction. He becomes convinced that governments, institutions, and systems exist to drain individuals, to harvest their freedom, their money, their obedience. He decides he will never be owned. So in 2009 he leaves. He chooses Belize, warm water, looser oversight, and crucially no extradition treaty at the time. A place where he believes the rules don't reach him. He buys property, first a beachside home, then something deeper inland. He surrounds himself with armed security and people who are loyal because he pays them well, or because they fear him. He builds a makeshift lab and claims he's researching herbal antibiotics, hunting miracle compounds and jungle plants, trying to solve superbugs with nature. He launches a company to legitimize the experiments. To outsiders, he looks like an eccentric expat playing scientist. To locals, he looks like something else. Unpredictable, paranoid, possibly dangerous. His compound becomes its own little kingdom. He hosts bonfire parties. Guns appear like decorations. Young girlfriends rotate through his orbit. His security presence grows. And over time, his paranoia stops looking like a personality quirk and starts looking like a condition. He picks fights. He clashes with neighbors. He acts like he can buy reality itself. And Belize quietly reminds him that it doesn't work like that. Then comes April 30, 2012. Belize's gang suppression unit storms McAfee's compound. Tactical gear. Rifles. The kind of raid that screams intimidation. McAfee, his girlfriend, and his staff are lined up at gunpoint. His dogs, large mastiffs bred for aggression, rush the intruders. A warning is shouted. A shotgun blast. A dog drops. McAfee loses it. He screams. He shakes with fury. The raid lasts hours. Equipment is flipped. Weapons are seized. Bottles of chemicals are taken. McAfee claims they're antibiotics. When it's over, no major drug cache is found. The only charge is an unlicensed firearm, paperwork-level trouble. Yet he's still dragged to a filthy holding cell and spends the night buying tiny comforts with bribes, watching how easily the system can invade his world. When he's released, something changes. McAfee becomes convinced the government wants him dead. He sleeps armed. He adds cameras and tripwires. He starts talking about assassination plots and corrupt alliances between police and criminals. Maybe it's paranoia. Maybe it's instinct. Either way, it becomes his operating system. And then there's the neighbor. On Ambergris Cay, just a short distance away, lives Gregory Fall, an American expat who moved to Belize for peace. Instead, he gets John McAfee. McAfee's dogs roam the beach, bark through the night, and reportedly cause problems. Complaints pile up. Tension builds. Fall confronts him. McAfee refuses to back down. The dogs are security, he insists. The feud simmers like a fuse. November 9, 2012. That fuse catches fire. McAfee's dogs begin foaming at the mouth. One by one, they convulse and collapse. By morning, multiple dogs are dead, poisoned. McAfee is devastated, then enraged. In his mind, it's not just cruelty. It's a message. Maybe cartels. Maybe enemies. Maybe the neighbor who threatened to handle the dogs himself. He paces. He sees. He starts talking like a man who believes he's at war. Less than 2 days later, the island hears a single gunshot in the night. Many dismiss it. Firecrackers. A car backfiring. Just another sound in paradise. November 11th. A housekeeper walks into Gregory Fall's home and finds him face up in blood. A 9mm round through the back of his head, execution style. His laptop and phone are missing. The island freezes. Belizean police move quickly to question McAfee. When officers arrive at his property, the gate is open. The place is empty. He saw them coming. McAfee disappears into the jungle with his girlfriend, and now the man who built a fortune selling protection is suspected of doing the opposite. From this point on, McAfee doesn't run like a normal fugitive. He runs like someone who planned for this. Within hours, he's moving through a network of safe locations. Sympathetic homes, remote shacks, places that don't exist on official maps. Police set up roadblocks. Helicopters sweep overhead. Raids hit anyone connected to him. But McAfee becomes a ghost. At one point, hiding while authorities search nearby, he watches an old movie about castaways building a life off-grid and laughs at the irony. He jokes about building a treehouse. But the truth is darker. Every hour he stays in Belize increases the chance he gets caught or killed. So he makes a move. 3 days after the murder, under cover of darkness, he pays for an illegal boat ride out of Belize and into Guatemala. No passport stamps. No paperwork. No trace. By morning, he's in Guatemala City, checking into a hotel under a fake identity. For the first time in days, he breathes. Then he makes the mistake that changes everything. He can't resist the spotlight. McAfee contacts a major media outlet and offers exclusive access. Journalists arrive. Photos are taken. A story goes live showing the world's most wanted antivirus mogul grinning like he's winning. The article goes viral, and so does the metadata. Someone points out that the published images contain GPS location information. The hotel is exposed to the entire internet. In trying to control the narrative, McAfee hands investigators a map. Days later, Guatemalan police storm the hotel. Cameras flash. Handcuffs click. McAfee is detained for illegal entry and told he'll be deported back to Belize. To him, that's not a transfer, it's a death sentence. And here's where McAfee shows what he does best. He turns bureaucracy into a weapon. In custody, he collapses, clutching his chest, gasping for help. Guards panic. He's rushed to a hospital. News breaks worldwide. John McAfee has suffered heart attacks. The deportation is paused. Time is bought. Doctors later find no real damage. McAfee smirks. He essentially admits it was performance. Breath control, hyperventilation, and pure acting designed to spike vital signs and slow the process. While the system hesitates, his lawyers flood the courts with emergency filings. And in that chaos, Guatemala chooses the simplest exit. Instead of sending him back to Belize, they send him to the United States. McAfee lands in Miami disheveled, unshaven, and grinning for cameras like he just won a championship. Belize wanted him. Guatemala held him. But he walks into American sunlight, free at least for now. Back in the US, he tries domestic life briefly. He marries Janice, decades younger, and settles into a rented normalcy. It doesn't last. McAfee doesn't do quiet. He does theater. He releases a bizarre viral video mocking how to uninstall the antivirus software that still carries his name. He flirts with politics. He declares himself a prophet of privacy, encryption, and rebellion. Then he finds a new stage, cryptocurrency. McAfee reinvents himself again, this time as a loud, controversial evangelist for digital money. He lives like a floating headline, often on a yacht, surrounded by security, weapons, and the idea that movement itself is protection. And behind the performance is a real threat closing in: taxes. McAfee hasn't filed returns in years. He boasts about it. He calls taxation theft. But the US government doesn't treat that as philosophy, it treats it as a crime. In 2019, a federal indictment quietly lands: tax evasion and related charges. McAfee gets tipped off. Instead of surrendering, he vanishes again, this time into the Caribbean, using the sea like a loophole. Airports are traps. Passport scans are game over. So he avoids them entirely. He hops harbors. He tweets constantly. Sometimes he posts his location. Sometimes it's bait. Sometimes it's a joke. He turns pursuit into content, using publicity as a shield because governments prefer quiet arrests, and McAfee makes quiet impossible. Authorities detain him briefly in places like the Dominican Republic, reportedly over weapons on board. But again he slips away, released, moving, laughing as the yacht pulls back into open water. The world watches this bizarre spectacle. A wanted man broadcasting himself like an influencer, daring the system to catch him. Eventually the running slows. In 2020, McAfee ends up in Spain. Whether it's exhaustion, tightening borders, or simply the limits of luck, the game changes. On October 5, 2020, at an airport near Barcelona, his passport is scanned. His name flags immediately. Spanish police surround him. After years of escape tricks and maritime cat and mouse, John McAfee is arrested at the request of the United States. Now the performance has a ceiling. He's locked in a cell, awaiting extradition. He tries to control the narrative from behind bars. Statements, messages, occasional posts through lawyers. He suggests he won't be silenced. He hints at conspiracies. He implies that if he dies, it won't be by his own hand. Supporters listen. Critics roll their eyes. But everyone understands one thing. If he's extradited at his age, he may never leave prison alive. June 23, 2021. A Spanish court signs the extradition order. The system has finally caught him. Within hours, guards find McAfee dead in his cell, hanging by a bedsheet. The official ruling is suicide. He's 75 years old. And instantly the internet splits in two. One side sees the simplest explanation. A man who lived on his own terms chose the only exit still available. The other side sees a final mystery. The timing is too perfect, they argue, and McAfee hinted too loudly that he wouldn't do it. Spanish authorities investigate. An autopsy is performed. The conclusion remains: death consistent with hanging. The case is closed on paper. But culturally it never closes. Because McAfee didn't live like a normal person. He lived like a storyline. Paranoia as strategy, publicity as armor, escape as identity. He built a fortune selling fear of unseen threats. Then he became the threat everyone could see. A tech genius turned jungle king, turned fugitive celebrity, turned crypto outlaw, turned prisoner, who spent his final years daring the world to cage him until the cage finally locked. And if you think this was the wildest example of someone humiliating powerful agencies, you're not ready for the next story, because there are fugitives who didn't just run from the system, they rewired it. Click the next video to see the one who made the feds look like amateurs on a global scale.